Welcome to my channel. Lately, the topic of American HIMARS has been on everyone's lips. I would like to talk about them in more detail. The Ukrainian army entered the full-scale war against Russia in the status of an underdog, as bookmakers call the teams in whose victory no one believes. But despite all the predictions, the AFU did not lose. In the first days of the Russian invasion, it was able to maintain control and then knock the Russians out from around Kyiv, Chernihiv, and Sumy. From there the game went long as the Russians began to use their huge advantage in artillery, and the Ukrainian forces found it difficult to counter this, except for the resilience of the infantry, digging trenches all along the front line World War I style. But in recent weeks a new factor has emerged in the war, which has already been felt by Russian artillery depots and logistics centers along the entire line of contact. The name of this factor is HIMARS. What is known about this weapon, and how does it affect the course of the war? HIMARS is an American grad, only modern. The M142 HIMARS is an American multiple rocket launcher system called the High Mobility Artillery Rocket System. It is analogous to the Grads or the longer-range Merchant Hurricanes. While the Soviet systems have fairly low accuracy for each missile and work by area, the U.S. units place more emphasis on accuracy. That is why the HIMARS package is many times smaller than, for example, the Grad, 6 missiles versus 40 Grad missiles. But the GPS navigator in American rockets allows them to destroy targets with less ammunition consumption. The HIMARS predecessor in the U.S. Army was and still is the M270 MLRS track platform based on the M2 Bradley BMP. But there are key differences between them. HIMARS is indeed mobile. The chassis on wheels, rather than tracks, allows them to move very quickly where there are paved roads. This limits the ability to operate off-road, but in the current war in Ukraine, there are enough roads and targets for these systems. At the same time, thanks to the more powerful track base, the older M270 can carry a larger package of missiles, not 6, but 12. HIMARS is a lighter version of an older tracked launcher that can deploy faster and uses the same missiles. And because this system is mobile, it can fire quickly and travel from the launch site, making it very survivable in an era of short intervals between target detection and destruction, explains retired Australian General McRyan. Because of its range and accuracy, it is a weapon designed to hit targets far behind enemy lines. It is used to destroy critical communications nodes, command centers, airfields, and important logistics, he adds. How many of them are in the AFU? In the second half of June, the first videos began to circulate, showing that HIMARS were already working in the Ukrainian armed forces. At the same time, it was claimed that the number of such systems in the Ukrainian army was 4. In early July, National Security and Defense Council Secretary Alexei Danilov told the Wall Street Journal that the armed forces had 9 HIMARS and counterparts, most likely referring to the M270, which Ukraine may have received from Britain. The Ukrainian portal Defense Express provides the following calculations. The AFU has either already received the second batch of HIMARS and 1 British M270, or half of the second batch of American systems, and all the promised M270 from Great Britain. In any case, the total number of systems already promised and transferred has, according to official data, 17 units. This is more than France, 13, or Turkey, 12, and almost identical to Israel, which has 18 M270 launchers in service. An important factor is the type of munitions used by the HIMARS and M270. Their range can vary from rockets that hit at a distance of 40 or 80 km to powerful ballistic missiles ATACMS, whose modifications can have a range of up to 300 km. The main impact of HIMARS and its counterparts on the war now is precision strikes on critical Russian targets. There are so many HIMARS now that they are being tasked with first priority goals, which are operational and tactical level formations, core depots, etc. We have taken them all out consistently, probably more than 20 in the last 2 weeks. Alexei Arestovich, advisor to the head of the presidential office, told Fagin Live in a recent broadcast. This is very painful for the Russian troops and creates a huge problem for the accumulation of material supplies, ensuring the sustainability of the logistics networks that feed the offensive. And most importantly, they have started to move the warehouses away from the front lines, he explained. The Russians are forced to disperse warehouses, and therefore also repair bases, refueling stations, guards, and air defenses. This is a multiplication of costs. While it costs Ukraine only 3 MLRS batteries that carry 12 loaded missiles and another 12 missiles in reserve. The dispersal of depots and longer communications means that supply convoys, which the Ukrainian army destroyed in the Kyiv region at the beginning of the war, are once again appearing in the Russian rear. Officially, the Russian Defense Ministry did not report Ukrainian strikes on the trains. Information and video evidence was circulated on social networks by eyewitnesses to the explosions, military journalists and bloggers on both sides, and local officials. Some of the explosions were not commented on by the Russians at all, while in other cases they claimed to have hit humanitarian trains or saltpeter composition, as in Novaya Kakhovka, even though according to Russian media reports, even many hours after the explosions began there, detonation was observed, which is hardly possible in the case of mineral fertilizers. What's next? In parallel with the first successful strikes of the HIMARS and M270, expectations are emerging as to whether these weapons can bring about a strategic breakthrough on the front. US MLRS does have great potential, but quantity does matter. Expectations are not exaggerated. That is, in sufficient numbers, these things can stabilize the front, working on all types of targets characteristic of artillery. However, Ukraine should not expect too many HIMARS and M270s. For realistic estimates, I suggest recalling the number of these systems during the war in Iraq in the early 2000s. Only the US concentrated against Saddam 90 launchers, and in a month and a half worked off 5,900 missiles. That we should not expect a huge number of HIMARS is also said by presidential advisor Alexei Arestovich. There will certainly be no such thing as us firing on individual buildings or tanks. For that, you would have to give up half of the American army, which is impossible. However, the prospects for the HIMARS and M270 are still great, even with the numbers that are already in the Ukrainian army or will appear soon. We will be able to hit not only the big headquarters but also the smaller ones, thanks to radio electronic intelligence and NATO allies. We know a great deal about the Russian army simply by analyzing their communication systems. Military correspondent Yuri Butasov notes. This means observers suggest that in the future HIMARS and M270 may move from large Russian arsenals to the headquarters of regiments, divisions, and brigades of Russian forces, and then to smaller control points of battalions and companies. At this point, I will say goodbye to you and see you again. Have a good day.